Hi guys, welcome to episode 4 of WP Bros Academy. In this video, we're going to be looking at how you create your first block. We're going to be looking over the code and we're going to be guiding you through actually writing your own block and all of that good stuff. Before we get into that, we should probably talk about what you need to know in order to actually understand what's going on. So Phil, do you want to just kick us off with the prerequisites?
Yeah, sure. So I think obviously we're going to talk through, a lot of the core concepts that we're going to cover in these files as we go along. But I would strongly recommend that anyone watching this has a good base knowledge of modern JavaScript, because we're going to be using things like arrow functions, destructuring, imports, exports, that sort of thing. And of course, obviously, Gutenberg is built upon React. So I think that everyone who's coming into Gutenberg development, if you don't know React at all, I would definitely recommend going away and learning that. There's some really good React courses out there. But you should have at least a good base knowledge of React and understanding the core concepts such as props and children and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think modern JavaScript and React are essential really for Gutenberg block development.
Definitely. And we've gone through some of the things like running things in the terminal already in the previous video. I'm sure you're all familiar with doing those kind of things and having all of your Node and npm set up. Once you've got that all sorted and you're able to compile that multi-block plugin, we should be ready to dive straight into this video. But just to add, if you don't really understand what's going on under the hood within that multi-block plugin, and it's a little bit scary if you've never seen that stuff before, don't worry. Like, as long as it's compiling and everything's working, just ignore that for now. Let's dive into actually looking at how you create a block. And I think once you start getting familiar with everything, it will all start clicking together. So just don't worry. It's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go through everything from scratch and we're going to look at everything. So you're in good hands.
I hope so.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So yeah, in the last video, we left it with block 1 and block 2. And inside of our multi-block plugin, we had block 1. I think we had block 2 actually in there, but I think we've deleted that since. But what we're going to do, just to kind of clean things up a little bit and not confuse you, is we're going to delete block 2 because I don't think we really need that right now. We just wanted to show how the multi-block plugin worked and how you could have multiple blocks within this array. But we'll start with just block 1 and we'll just look at block 1 together. And after we've looked at block 1, we'll actually start from scratch with a whole new block folder, a completely new block, and we'll write all of the code that we're currently going to be looking at now. Okay, so Phil, let's just go through some of these files and just explain to people what's going on and what they're looking at.
Yeah, sure. So what you see now within block 1 is pretty typical of what you will see within any block, including the core blocks. If you ever look at the GitHub repo for Gutenberg repository, very, very standard stuff. So you've got a block.json, which is new as of WordPress 5.8, I believe. And this is a really great file. We're going to look at this in much more detail in a minute, and we're going to code some of this stuff out from scratch. So again, don't worry too much at this stage if it looks a little bit daunting. But this really is just the kind of, the heart of your plugin, really. This is where you register the block name, the title, the category, you give it an icon, You can set up what your block supports in terms of anchor links, in terms of alignment settings, padding settings. There's all sorts of things that you can do there. But also as well, it's really, really great because previously you used to have to register all of these settings in two different places, both server side and on the client side, using PHP and JavaScript. Now you've got this block.json file, which is a central single source of truth for your block. So this is where you will register all of your metadata for both the PHP server side and your JavaScript client side. So it's really, really important. It's really beneficial. It's a great addition to block development. And we're going to be looking at this in a lot more depth as we go on and start coding our own block.
Cool. It might be worth mentioning now the WordPress block editor handbook, where we've got a lot of this stuff from originally and where we've learned some of this from. So just what Phil was talking about now, the block.json, you can see an example of that on the handbook, and you can take a lot from this and see what things you can do.
Yeah, it's really, really handy. If you scroll further down the page as well, it'll look a bit more familiar to people who are used to maybe the theme developer handbook. So it actually gives you step by step. If you keep going further down, it gives you basically what each setting is. So, for instance, title is a string, icon is a string, that sort of thing. So if you're ever unsure in terms of what kind of property or value the block.json is actually looking for, all of your different options and settings and what WordPress is looking for in that property is all listed out on this page. So again, the link will be in the description below. Feel free to go and check this all out in your own time. But yeah, they are working on some of this documentation at the moment. Some of it's still very, very thin, hence why we're making these videos and trying to help fellow developers. But yeah, I find this page in particular seems to be very well documented, so worth checking out.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the code. We'll close the block.json file and we'll move on to the index.js. Isn't probably a nice place to start from.
Yeah, so this is literally where you register your block on the client side. We took a look in the last video at the root PHP file, which is where we have our array, and we're looping through that and registering each block on the server side using the PHP function. Here, all that's going on is we're literally registering the block. And you can see the first argument in that register block type function is literally just the name of the block. So if you open up the block.json file, you'll see that the name at the top, third down, that's literally what we're using to register the block. And the clever stuff now with block.json is WordPress already knows from the name of your block that it is looking for the block.json file in that block. So you just give it the name of the block. You don't have to pass all the settings that are in the block.json. It just knows, it registers it. It's all very clever. And then the second argument to the register block type function is a JavaScript object, and we're just passing it the edit function and the save function. So yeah, very, very simple. We're going to talk about the edit and save function next. So over to you, James.
Okie dokie, let me open up the edit.js file. Cool. You're probably best explaining it, Phil. So happy for you to continue.
Okay, so the edit.js file is literally just the code that's going to run in the back end on the Gutenberg editor. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Gutenberg and Gutenberg Block Development is obviously built on top of React. So this is where you're going to be writing quite a lot of the JavaScript, the React code, your JSX, for what you want your block to do and how you want it to behave in the editor to create your nice editing experience for people. So you've got a basic React function here in the default block, and it's just returning a paragraph tag. That's it. And in that paragraph tag, we've got some WordPress internationalization going on, which is the double underscore at the beginning. And that's just being imported at the top of the file from the WordPress internationalization package. So literally, if you were to go into the editor of Gutenberg, add this block, you would literally see a paragraph text with the text "Hello from the editor." So it's very, very simple. Nothing too daunting, hopefully here. Just the very basics.
And this is literally just JavaScript and React, pretty much.
Yeah.
If you know React, this will all look familiar to you and make complete sense. And if you don't, you probably want to head back to brush up on some of that.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's WordPress specific in this file is the specific packages at the top which are being imported.
Yeah.
So again, if you're not familiar with where we got these packages or what these packages are, bear with us because we're going to kind of talk you through all of that good stuff anyway, and show you where you can find out more about some of these packages. But yeah, other than that, it's just JavaScript and React basically.
Lovely. All right, let's move on to the last file, or the last JS file within the block, which is the save.js file.
Yeah, so this is a much lighter file probably than your edit.js file. So whereas the edit.js file is for the back end and it's going to have all your JavaScript and React code for how you want your block to behave in the editor, this save function is all about the front end. So it's just the markup basically that you want your block to have on the front end of your website once you've saved your blocks. So this is really just going to be HTML code a lot of the time, obviously as JSX really, but essentially you're just marking up your HTML for the front end. So these probably be a lot lighter without a lot of the functionality that you've got going on in the back end. So yeah, again, very similar stuff going on in this file. You've got your internationalization
That's the one.
import at the top, and you just got hello from the saved content. So
yeah,
there you go.
So nice
and if you can
lightweight.
say internationalization, you're better than me.
Yeah, nice lightweight file, not too much going on there.
Yeah.
And then
you can see why they abbreviated that package now.
Yeah. And then I think the only other files in there are the Sass files.
Yeah. So self-explanatory probably, and there's some comments in these files. Obviously, we're going to start from scratch in a minute. But the editor.scss file is literally just the styles that will get enqueued only in the back end, in the editor. So again, this is stuff that came with the default official WordPress create block package. They've just given some kind of dotted dash border around the editor block in the editor, and on the style they've just got some default styling going on there on the front end. So style.scss gets loaded front and back end, and the editor.scss file is just for the back end editor. So if you wanted to create, a bit like what WordPress have done here, they've created the dotted border to illustrate your block in the editor. You can create some nice styles specifically for the editor, but otherwise you're probably just going to chuck everything into the style.scss file and kind of get those styles matching up on the front end and the back end.
Yeah, it is quite a nice feature though, that you can, if you want to have it looking slightly different for whatever reason in the editor. I quite like that option.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah, it opens up some extra doors if they just stuck with style.scss, it could be a little bit annoying. Didn't have that option. So I like that. I like when they go a little bit above and beyond.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that is a really quick, brief overview of all of these files that make up a block. Obviously, they're at their most basic form at the moment, and there's not a lot going on. But that's good. That's where we want to start and then build on from there. So I think what we'll do next then is we'll close up this folder and we'll create a new block together. So what should we call this new block, and where should we start?
Don't know.
Shall we just create a really basic paragraph block, and
Yeah.
we will call it paragraph?
Yeah, let's try and replicate basically what we've got in block 1, but we'll code it out from scratch just to get you up and running, show you some of the core fundamentals that's going on, and we'll just code it along together.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. So where do we start then? Do we start in the multi-block plugin file?
So you can do what I would normally, my workflow normally is to create everything in the source folder first,
Okay.
and then I'll just head over to the multi-block plugin once I've done it and just add it in. So you'll need to add it in under block library, not in the root source folder. There you go.
There we go. It's a bit confusing working with VS Code because I'm not usually working in VS Code, so bear with. So we'll just call this. I don't know if this will cause any issues with like WordPress or anything if they've got a paragraph block or.
It should be okay because in the block.json file, you've got to namespace everything anyway. So the core one will be namespace to core. We'll just make sure we don't do that.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we've got our paragraph folder. Do you want to, should we create all of the individual files out, just get them all set up?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool, so we're going to need index.js, edit.js, save.js. We need a block.json file. We can create the CSS files as well. We might as well. So we need a editor.scss. And lastly, I believe we have just styles.scss or style.
Style.scss.
Cool. Is that everything?
Yep.
All right. So then next
looks
step.
Good. Yeah. So I would head over to the multi-block plugin. You can add that into your array.
Cool.
So what we're passing here is literally just the name of your folder. So if you look below in the register block type for each loop, we are registering the block type and we're looking for each block in the array within the source folder, within the block library directory, and then the name of the block. So we're literally, this isn't the block name like we passed to the register block type in the index.js file earlier. This is literally just the name of that folder that we created for our block.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
And then you need the trailing / as well on that one.
Oh, perfect.
Awesome.
All right, so that makes things really nice and easy having this multi-block plugin array. So I think we're done here. We can close that out.
Yeah, all done. Simple as that.
Beautiful. Okay, I guess we just start coding away now.
Yeah, so we probably need to start with the block.json because this is where we're going to assign a name and all of that good stuff basically to our block. So obviously being a JSON file, it's obviously written in JSON format. So for instance,
I mean,
obviously
it might even be worth just for this particular file. I don't know if it's easier for you to just copy the one from block 1 and just change the name. What do you think?
Yeah.
And then code all the JS files.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Because there's not that many things that are going to change here, really, are there?
No, not really. So, I mean, I can talk people through some of the stuff very quickly. The schema really is just there to help us out. So, it's just for like your editor. It gives you shortcuts on what's available. So there's some data schema behind what's available, and a lot of that's been done. A lot of the stuff is what James showed you earlier on the editor handbook on that link. So you get all sorts of really cool stuff. But we've got obviously the name of the block. So let's rename this. So this is where you've got your namespacing. So at the moment, our namespace is create-block, because that's what we've decided our namespace is. So let's call this paragraph.
And just jumping in, if we were creating a production plugin, would we say that we would namespace it to be whatever the name of our plugin is?
Exactly, yeah. So you try and keep it, obviously, normal conventions like you would with theme development or plugin development. Probably best practice to keep it the same as the plugin name. For this, I'm choosing the default stuff that we got,
of course,
with the standard npm package.
Cool, that's me done.
So then we've got the title, and this title is what you're going to actually see in the editor when you're adding your block. So this is the title of it. Category, we showed you a couple of videos back, the Gutenberg editor, and there's different categories. I'm just going to leave that as text for now because it's a text block. Got a description here. Obviously, you can change that to whatever you want to describe your block. This is an example paragraph block. Something short and sweet. Again, this is going to display in the editor, so you don't want anything too long. I think that looks good to me. We've got the text domain. Let's just change that to paragraph quickly.
Yeah, a couple of file paths
and then
and stuff.
Yeah, a couple of file paths and things like that. Paragraph. Cool. I think that looks like everything. If I missed anything,
no, I think that's everything.
I think that's everything, really. Is there anything that we need to add, or any other settings, or anything that we might want to?
No, the only thing I wanted to mention was just that the JS editor script line, it's got paragraph, so it's inside of a paragraph folder in the build.
Yes.
So that, I think it's only the JS ones that have their own folders, whereas the others just go straight into that directory.
Yeah, that was the only thing with the plugin. I've still not managed to find a way to put the CSS for each block into their own folder as well. So they're just in the CSS folder just to keep them out of the way for now. But
yeah,
as I said, I'm sure WordPress will do a great job when they release their multi-block plugin, and all of our problems will be solved.
Yeah, but I think that's perfect. I think let's head into index.js.
Cool.
Now. Cool. All right, that's my job.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Okay, so we're into the index.json. So let's start now by actually registering our block. So to register a block, we need to use the register block type function that I mentioned earlier. And to do that, we need to import that function from a WordPress package. So we're going to import using just standard JavaScript. And we're going to register the block type from WordPress blocks. So my editor gave me a bit of help there with that, but let's just type it out just in case. And and that's from WordPress. And you can see here I'm getting some autocomplete stuff, a few different packages. And again, we're going to go through all of this later. So really don't worry too much at this stage about all the packages, and it can seem a little bit daunting at first, but try not to worry too much about that. Let's just import everything else that we're going to need. So we're going to need the style.scss file. Obviously, this index.js file is the file that's actually getting imported as the entry point to Webpack. So this is why we're importing our style.scss, because without importing that, it wouldn't actually get compiled out into our build folder. So although we're not necessarily using style.scss in this index.js file, this is the entry point for the whole block. So yeah, that's why we're going to use that. Let's import the edit function. Don't actually need the JS. Let's import a save. If you're wondering as well why up here we've got the curly braces around this import, but we don't have the curly braces around the edit and save import, it's because the edit and save imports will be the export defaults within these files, whereas up here, the WordPress blocks package contains multiple different functions, different features that you can import into your blocks, and it's not the default export. Therefore, using JavaScript, you need to wrap them inside these braces. Because these are the default exports, you don't need to. So for any of you wondering why, that's why.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you can also have multiple as well, so you could comma separate them and pull in multiple packages or functions.
Exactly. So now we've got our register block type function that we've imported up here. As I mentioned, you only need to pass this function a name. So we're going to go back to our block.json. Let's just grab the name from here. There's lots of different ways you can do this. You can import metadata from the block.json file and destructure the name from that. I'm just going to keep it very simple now and just pass a string with the name that we've created in our block.json. And then the second argument, as I said, is a JavaScript object. And we're going to pass it the edit. And we're going to pass it the save. Now, just to let you know, the save function is mandatory. So you must have this being passed into the object as the second argument. Weirdly enough, the edit function isn't mandatory. So not sure how that works in terms of the block editor, but without the save function in this register block type, you literally, your block will just break. So yeah, you need to pass it the name, obviously, so it knows where to find the block.json file, and it needs to have the save function. And that's literally all there is to the index.js file. So that's hopefully not too daunting for any of you watching and maybe kind of going through this for the first time. Anything that you want to mention, James?
No, I think that covers everything really. The index.js file doesn't ever really change from there, does it? I mean, that's the setup and that's how it stays.
Not
and
really.
then most of the magic or all of the magic happens in edit.js and save.js.
Absolutely.
So yeah, once you've got this set up, it's pretty much done.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
I find that with the index.js and the block.json as well, like the block.json is obviously where you'll initially configure and set everything up. Once you're done with that, it's very, very rare that you need to keep going back to it, which is why it's such a great addition as well. Just keeps things really nice and easy. Cool. So let's open the edit.js and let's kick off there. So I'm going to keep this nice and simple. I'm actually not going to import the internationalization for this one, just because I want to keep it very, very clean, this file. I just want the very essentials that we need. Obviously, internationalization is a great idea, and I do recommend that you do it within your blocks wherever possible. But yeah, for the purposes of keeping this file super clean for us just to begin with, I'm just going to leave it out for now.
So just talk everyone through, Phil, what use block props is and why we're putting it in.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a new function. So if we go back to the block.json file, that's where it all begins really. So you'll notice the second property within our block.json is the API version that we're using. And obviously on all modern blocks now, it's recommended that you use API version 2. Now, whenever you're using API version 2, it's essential, and again, your block will break without this. You need to be using use block props, which is in the edit.js file. So what this does is, a nutshell, is it basically does lots of clever stuff. You basically add this, and you'll see me add this in a second, to the wrapping element, whether that's a div or whatever. And in the editor, it's going to add all sorts of clever stuff, so Gutenberg knows which one is your block and which one is your instance of that block. So it will add things like class names, IDs, data IDs, all sorts of clever stuff, so Gutenberg can manage the data within the editor. And without that, it has no idea which one's your block, and it just breaks. So this is a must-have for any blocks using API version 2.
It's almost, in a way, like if you're familiar with theme development, it's kind of like the body class function that you put in your body. In a way, it adds in like the necessary
yeah. That's a really good analogy. Yeah,
and things that WordPress is going to want to use in the back end and even the front end.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really good analogy, actually. Basically exactly the same thing, so that Gutenberg can manage your block in the editor. So yeah, we'll come on to that in a second, because we're going to use that in the save function as well. But there's a slightly different variant that you have to use on the front end. So I'll mention that again shortly. So we've imported that. Let's quickly import the editor. Let's quickly import the editor SCSS file. Should have wrapped these in quotes. So there's my problem there. Because we're going to have some editor-specific style shortly. And then let's just set up our function. So we're going to export, if I can type, export default function. And again, there's lots of different ways that you can do this. You can create a constant and use JavaScript arrow functions. I'm just using this for now because this is what WordPress uses out of the box as well. Just keeps it nice and simple. So standard React export default function, returning JSX code. So what do we want to return here, James? Simple paragraph.
Yeah, just a p tag, isn't it?
I did get some autocomplete eventually. So in this opening p tag, so this is, if I wrap that down so we can see, obviously this is our outer component, our single returned JSX component. So this is where we would now spread, using the spread operator, use block props as a function, and we're wrapping that inside these JavaScript tags to say that we're inside JSX code at the moment, because we're inside the return function. And basically, anytime you're inside JSX in React and you want to perform some sort of JavaScript function or whatever, you need to wrap it inside these two curly braces, basically. So that's what's going on there. And let's just say hello from the editor. And that is literally as simple as it is. That's our edit function done now. We're returning a single root DOM element, a paragraph tag with hello from the editor.
Nice.
So that's the edit function done.
Cool. And just wanted to mention about the spreading in, if people aren't aware of what that's doing. I mean, you should probably know that if you are familiar with JavaScript, but it's just literally taking everything out of the use block props array and putting it in to its individual items in its, if that explains it well enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't think of a better way to describe it off the top of my head. So yeah.
But yeah, if you're not sure, just have a little look up on how you use the spread operator and what it does.
Yeah, there'll be some cases, I guess, with Gutenberg development where it comes in really handy. So it's worth knowing. I just realized as well that I also forgot to wrap my text inside the squiggly braces. So I've added that in as well. In fact, I'm not actually sure
No,
if
I
I
don't
need
know
these.
if you
I
need
don't
to,
think I'd need them.
because it's just a,
I think it's just text, isn't it? It's just a string. So I think that's fine actually without it.
cool.
Cool. So that's the edit function done.
Okay.
So then let's head over to the save function. Okay, we're nearly done now, guys. It's actually not too much more than what we've already done. So again, we're going to import the use block props from Wordpress block editor package. And we don't actually need to import the style.scss file because we've already done that in our index file, which is our entry point anyway. And that's going to compile all of the front end CSS for us. So we don't actually need to include that in this function. So even cleaner than the edit function, we can just go ahead and create our export default save function. And we're going to return some JSX again. And on the front end, obviously, we're going to return a paragraph tag. Now, this is where as I mentioned earlier, it slightly differs from the edit function. We'll put the link in the description below again. I don't know, actually, James, if you want to get it up quickly, have we got enough time quickly just to show people? In the block editor handbook, if you could stay on that. If you scroll to the very top.
Yep, so I just lost my cursor behind my camera. Okay.
That's all right. So if you literally, it's right there. So if you go into the accordion that's already open on the left-hand side and go to API versions.
Yep.
I think, is it here? Here we go. Perfect. So it tells you for versions 2 and above, as of WordPress 5.6, if you're using version 2 of the API, you must use block props on the edit implementation. However, on the front end in your save function, they've got a method that you have to add on to use block props, which is the save method. So you need to obviously spread that into your paragraph tag. So I just wanted to show people, and that is documented if you're ever interested. But now if we head back to the save.js file, we're going to just spread in use block props .save. And now you all know why I'm doing that. I guess because as well, just in the edit function, without the save method on it, as I said, it's doing lots of clever stuff that's needed for the editor specifically, things like data IDs, CSS classes, that sort of thing, to manage everything in the back end with all the React that's going on. On the front end, you don't really need all of that. What this does basically is just spits out the class onto your wrapper of your block name. So we'll see that shortly anyway. And let's just create hello from the front end.
Perfect.
Oh,
And that's it, isn't it?
and that's literally it. So we've got our say function, we've got our edit function, we've got our index.js, and we've got our block.json. The only thing we've not done so far is some styles. I don't know if you want to add some now, James, or if we wanted to just show them the block in Gutenberg, whatever you want to do.
I think let's have a little look at this point where we are now of how it's actually translating to the back end. And then we can have a look at whether we want to add some styles and stuff, but it'd be a good point now to actually see this all working. So should we head over to the WordPress installation?
Yeah.
Go over to a page. I can't remember what we did in the test page, but let's have a look anyway. Okay, I'm just going to remove these blocks.
Yeah, let's
start from the
them.
beginning. Cool. So we've got like a test page. Remove this block as well. Start from scratch. So now, if all is well, we should see a paragraph block somewhere.
It should be under text at the top. Are you not seeing it?
I mean, I'm not seeing it.
I was just thinking, are we running npm start still at the moment?
I don't actually know, and that's a good point. So
let's check our build folder, because if it's not in there, it might be. Sometimes you do need to just cancel the npm start. Yeah. I would say let's cancel the npm start and just run it again, because sometimes that just flushes it out if you've made quite a few changes. So yeah, you have to just press Y and then just run npm start again, and it will just recompile.
Okay.
Just give it a second to wake up. It's normally pretty good with the live reloading, but there you go. You can see now in your build folder, you've got block 1 and paragraph rather than block 1 and block 2. So
perfect.
Fantastic. We know we're on to a winner, hopefully now.
And that's Webpack doing all of this clever stuff, isn't it? And
yeah.
So yeah, if we refresh this page, actually, do you know what? I'm going to just publish that page, because
let's update it with the
deleted all of those blocks and stuff. So let's refresh now. So we've got our clean page, and then we should now see.
Still nothing. Have we activated this plugin yet? Since you, because we deleted it, didn't we?
Yeah.
There we go.
We'll get there.
We are getting there. We're getting there.
All of these little things, though, you might even do yourselves. So
it's all part of the learning journey, isn't it?
It is.
If everything worked first time, it'd be boring. There we go.
Brilliant.
So we've now seen our 2 blocks. Hurrah!
Lovely. So we've got block 1 and our paragraph block with our nice smiley icon, and our preview that's appearing as well, which is great. So if we try,
you can see that description that we added to our block.json there when you hover over it as well, which is why I said don't make them too long. You don't get loads of space on that. So yeah.
So let's try adding this to our page and see what happens. So perfect. We've got our hello from the editor. That's exactly what we wanted to see. At the moment, it's not editable because we haven't added anything to make it an editable block yet. At the moment, it's literally just hard-coded text. But that's fine. That's what we expect. We'll be looking at how we can transform this into an actual editable paragraph block in the next video.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, before we go over and save this and look at it on the front end to prove that it's working on the front end as well, do you want to maybe, I don't know if it's possible, can you inspect in your console, in your browser, just to show people what that use block props is actually adding to our paragraph text?
Sure.
Just thought that might help people conceptualize what that function's actually doing.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's adding in all of these IDs, or an ID, and all of these classes
Yeah, exactly. All of that tab index, you'll notice in the edit function, we literally had a plain paragraph text. We didn't add any attributes to it whatsoever. So everything you see there, the data title, data type, everything like that, it's all being added using that use block props, basically.
That's pretty cool. That
Yeah,
takes a lot of the work away from you.
yeah.
So that's awesome. Okay, so let's update that and then flip over to the front end by clicking the view page link. And now we've got our hello from the front end block. So you can see it has saved. And if we inspect that, you can see now we've got our P with the class of WP block create block paragraph. And that is what is being added, no?
Yeah. I was just going to say, can you flip us over to the right? Because people can't see that on the,
Good
on the
point.
class names.
Let's flip us over there.
There we
And
go. Now you
there
can
we
see the
go.
markup. Cool.
Apologies. I think we should probably just keep ourselves on the right going forwards.
Yeah, we only put ourselves on the left for the last video when we were showing you guys the sidebar settings and stuff like that in the editor. So
Okay, well, I think it's been all right until this point.
yeah. No, it's been fine.
Good.
So yeah, you can see that class names being added just on the front end. You haven't got all the data IDs, all the data attributes where Gutenberg's trying to monitor stuff and manage stuff in React. You've just got the nice clean markup on the front end with your block class name.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's it for now. That was a lot to unwrap. Anything else to add before we finish up?
No, I think that's it for now. As I said, try not to get too bogged down with it. Maybe go back over some of these files if you're following along and coding at home as you're watching this. But yeah, we're gonna unpack a lot of this in the upcoming videos. So try not to get too bogged down if you don't understand it. Don't it's not too important at this stage. So yeah, it's not as
Yeah,
bad as it first seems. I promise you.
no. Stick with us.
Stick with us.
All right. Well, yeah, please like, share, and subscribe, and yeah, give us any feedback or ask us any questions in the comments or on Twitter or however you like to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help.
See you next time, guys.